Do you love breakdowns? Do you need stats? Do you crave insight? Download the AllStar app. UFC, Bellator, PFL 1 Championship, and more. Ad-free, fully customizable. Download the best app in the business. Link in descriptions.
Excuse me, sorry about that. I think the UFC's been making a couple of rare fumbles, like pretty clear fumbles in terms of the guys that they're keeping and the guys that they're letting go. They talked about openly, they meant to re-sign Shane Burgos and something in the paperwork we just forgot. It's like pretty unacceptable. I would have thought, they went to New York. He was basically the only New York star on the card, sold out the building. Has a pretty loyal local contingency that I happen to be a part of. So, shout out to Section 9. But in all seriousness, now that you have the Francis Ngannou situation, another, fighter that's, maybe starting to get towards the end of their prime, but still obviously in their prime earning years in a big position commercially, and they could still make some more money. They could still have 4, 5, 6 big fights, before their run starts to taper off. And I think that, when you look at Francis Ngannou's trajectory, now he might only have to have 2 or 3 or 4 fights to ride off into the sunset with more money than he ever imagined starting this combat sports bid. And the one thing about Francis that's a little bit different, he is a little bit older, but this is still heavyweight where guys compete for quite a long time. And I think now he can have, options. He could take the celebrity boxing route. He's got options with Jake Paul as well. And you're seeing a little bit more of this opening of the ecosystem in combat sports. Guys are starting to go other places because it's at the end of the day about feeding your family. It's about money. It's about how much I can earn for doing this. And so guys don't really care necessarily about the prestige. We just saw AJ McKee re-sign with Bellator as opposed to going to the UFC because when a lot of guys think about, but now he can't prove he's the best or something. Number one, that's an opinion. But number two, who cares? he can make more money for himself and his family and potentially have easier fights. And as Chael Sonnen always said, it's about the easiest fights in front of the biggest crowd for the most money. How else would you want a career to go? Sounds like a pretty good plan.
You make a great point, man. AJ McKee. Everybody's like, he's going to the UFC. He wants to fight the best in the world. And, if Bellator is going to pay you 7 figures to fight, why would you go to the UFC where people are fighting for their contracts? You know what I mean? When's the last time you heard like a Bellator fighter or even Bellator say like, he's on the losing streak, he's lost 3 in a row? There's no rule like that in any other promotion, right? We always talk about the 3-fight losing streak rule. Who made that? Who created the 3-fight losing streak rule? When did that even start? Like, I don't even remember, right? It's been so long that, you lose 3 fights, you're gonna get cut by the UFC. That even the fighters are like, it's like ingrained in their head. Like, this, my back against the wall. But now, in 2023, it's not even 3 fights anymore. You could lose 1 and get cut. You could lose 2 and get cut. It just depends on your situation. It just depends on how the UFC views you as a commodity, right? And that's what they view you. They view you as a commodity. This is fighting. You're a commodity. You're a prize fighter. And that's why money is so important, right? If you're not getting paid the most or the amount that you deserve, then you should go somewhere where they're going to pay you the amount that you deserve. And Francis Ngannou, I'm happy for him, man. I'm happy that he's going to go out. He's 36 years old. Like you said, heavyweights, they fight into their 40s, early 40s, mid 40s. How old is AllStar Overeem right now? The man is an animal, right? Still, and he's way older. For Francis, I see him re-signing with the UFC. This is my prediction. He's going to re-sign with the UFC after he goes away for a couple of years. Because you know why? People are like, oh, Dana White doesn't like him. Blah. It doesn't matter. Dana White doesn't like a lot of people. But Dana White likes money, right? And if you're gonna gross money, Dana White's gonna sign you. Like, he didn't like Ben Askren, he traded for Ben Askren, right? He didn't like Tito.
That's because he didn't like Mighty Mouse either. In fairness, he was like, I could get rid of one problem to get another. All right.
Well, the lesser of the problems, I guess. Like, you could use Ben Askren to catapult other people, and that's what exactly happened. And it kind of worked in Dana White's favor, right? Like, he did it. If you look at Tito Ortiz, Dana White kept him around. He hated Tito Ortiz for 8 fights, and he lost 7 straight. right? Until you beat Bader, I believe. And then who else was it? Ken Shamrock. He hated Ken Shamrock, but he kept him around so Tito Ortiz could beat his ass, right? Like, money. It's all about money. I think Francis will be back, but he's gonna go out there and get a big payday, a few big paydays, and even if he doesn't go back to the UFC, some other promotion will pick him up. PFL will pick him up. Bellator will pick him up. Somebody. Or maybe he might just do a world tour and just be like, all right, I'll fight once in Ryzen against some sumo wrestler for $3 million. And I'll go over here and fight for KSW against some random, bodybuilder for, $500 million. I don't know. MMA ecosystem. What do you think, man? What do you think of this whole Francis Ngannou situation?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like it's a win-win for just about everybody involved. I mean, I think the biggest loser from this is the UFC, and I agree. Like, I'm happy for him. I could see him maybe fighting like once a year and making huge paydays. I'd love to see him get into boxing, and even for just one or two fights, just because that is something he's talked about for such a long time, and I would love to see him be able to strap on those gloves. I think you're right. I think he's going to come back to the UFC after not too long. I wouldn't even be surprised if he signed with the UFC again this year. I wouldn't be surprised if the UFC was finally just like, look, here's $20 million. I don't know if it was a money thing that he left, or if it was more of a like, I want to get out there and just have different experiences. Maybe some of that will be revealed in the next couple of weeks, why he actually left, if it really was just because of money. But I think he's in an incredible position. The thing is just like, sometimes like heavyweight in other promotions around the world, kind of like it comes and goes. You think about like at one point heavyweight was really good in Strikeforce. At one point heavyweight was really good in Bellator, or at least like it was pretty strong. I still was never like putting it at the same level as the UFC, but like I would not say that this is one of those times. Like if you look out at heavyweight and the other promotions, this is not their strongest moments in PFL or Bellator. So I don't really know. There's not really a lot out there in MMA that excites me personally. I hope that he tries out boxing, or I hope, even like a Mariusz Pudzianowski and KSW, that gets me more excited than even thinking about like who's PFL's top guy or even who's Bellator's top guy. I'd love to see him in some freak show fights. To use that word, I think that'd be fun. I think he can make a lot of money. Even though we all know he's probably gets, he's going to get an easy win, but happy for him. I hope that this raises the ceiling a little bit on what fighters can make in MMA. I'm happy to see someone walk and push back on the UFC a little bit, and I'm happy for him.
Yeah, man. Like I support Francis Ngannou. I support like what he's trying to do. And I think that if he's successful in what he does, it opens a lot of doors for other fighters coming up. It opens doors for the next generation of fighters. It might not have an impact right now, but it will have an impact eventually. I think Francis Ngannou will fight John Jones. I wouldn't lose that dream right now at this moment. I think Francis Ngannou comes back to the UFC, fights John Jones. He gets an immediate title shot if John Jones is the champion. The UFC, they can't let that slide, man. They've already let it slide too many times. Fedor versus Lesnar. Even Dana White regrets that, right? He let that slide. Like, that was probably one of the biggest fights of all time. He dropped the ball. Jones, GSP versus Anderson Silva. Like fights like that. Fights that people want to see. You can't let that shit slide anymore. Pay-per-views have to be much bigger nowadays. And especially with the price hike, Liam. You paying for those pay-per-views? There's like $1,000 a pay-per-view. Next thing you know, 2030 UFC pay-per-views, $999. That's what's gonna end up being, man.
I do unfortunately have the displeasure of paying for these pay-per-views, and man, it's a chunk. It's a chunk. 10 units. Come on, they're asking for a lot out of you. So I don't think I don't think that the price reflects the value of the product every time either. Truthfully, I feel like the price was fair when it was like $50 or $55. And it's not like they're giving us better cards than they were then. In some ways, the quality of cards, especially lower down, has gotten worse at times. And, sometimes it feels like the fight cards that they try and stack the most end up turning out lackluster. Not every time, but it just feels like, the UFC needs a little bit of tinkering. I don't think they had one pay-per-view break 1 million last year, off the top of my head. So, without the biggest stars like Conor McGregor active, you kind of just come to a point where they have a formula for getting, 500,000 to 800,000, but can they break that mark? Can they build the next star? Who's that going to be? That's the open question this year. And I think there's obvious contenders. Khamzat Chimaev is one of them, who seems like he's poised to take that next big step, but, he's not the champion right now. And so I don't think that the UFC has that one premier banner champion, which is something that they're used to having in the past as well.
Man, they want Conor to come back so bad. You know they do. They want him. Like, Conor's dealing with like gay rumors and USADA issues and all kinds of stuff, but they want him to come back. Even just once this year, even one fight this year, they want him. And I think he will. I think this year he will be back. We'll see him fight somebody. He'll fight whoever he wants to fight. He'll fight Hezbollah. They probably put that together for some reason, for some wackiness. But